Oh, hey there. You might notice something if you're a regular. My usual Wizards flag is gone. I've had it in the background of all my videos to this point, but I gotta be honest. I'm not even from Washington. Nor do I want my credibility destroyed as soon as someone clicks on one of these. I need a background that represents me, but Connecticut's kind of an irrelevant state culturally speaking. I could get a nutmeg flag, nutmeg state. I could get a Constitution poster, Constitution state. You know what? Dave Portnoy really likes our pizza. Fuck it. In the summer of 2017, a lot changed for the NBA. Isaiah Thomas got betrayed by the Celtics, NBA 2K started charging VC for haircuts, and teams across the league adjusted to the new world order dominated by the Kevin Durant era Warriors. These changes came and went, but one more from that summer stuck big time. At the start of the 2017-18 season, Nike, the world's biggest sportswear company, started their 8-year, $1 billion contract with the NBA to let them put their swooshes on the jersey, a fate they had already conquered in the NFL and would soon do in MLB. These Nike jerseys came with some unforeseen issues. They were ripping all over the court, looked different, and had jersey sponsors on them. But the biggest change was the removal of restrictions with the jerseys that teams wore. Gone were the days of home, away, and alternate, and in was association, icon, and statement. Who the fuck ever used these terms? Let's be real. This terminology change was made because of Nike's anarchist vision for the NBA jersey format. Why restrict home teams into wearing their light uniforms when they can choose from all of their jerseys? As long as the colors don't conflict, what's the big deal? The new terminology, as goofy and meaningless as it sounds, detached white jerseys from being home jerseys and the other jerseys as road or alternate jerseys. Any jersey could be worn on any night, so long as the two colors don't conflict. But perhaps the most radical of these jersey changes was the introduction of a fourth uniform to every team set: the City Edition uniform. This diagram from the NBA in 2017 shows their thought process with the new Nike jerseys. You've got your standard home and away style main uniforms, one quote inspired by the player being the alternate Statement Edition jerseys, and one more quote inspired by the city. These city jerseys have become a mainstay in the yearly NBA news cycle all the way to now, 2025. Some of the league's most creative and popular jerseys have come through this very line. But you see, what started as a novel and fun concept turned into one of the most egregious branding directions I've ever seen made by a pro sports league, with uninspired designs and yearly releases driven by consumerism above all else. So today we're going to be answering what has gone wrong throughout the era of Nike making NBA uniforms, and what does the future of that partnership look like? Because their contract is locked up for years, and I don't need to see another one of these things to tell that something is up here. They started the reveals by releasing all 30 Statement Editions before the season, which ranged from bold, never before seen designs to just a standard third colorway like this Lakers one. But the real showstopper, of course, was the City Edition. Revealed well into the 2017-18 season right after Christmas, the City jerseys were an exciting addition to the NBA, although many fans were still bummed about Nike ending the Christmas Day Special Edition uniforms. The premise of these new Special Edition uniforms were exactly how it sounded: a jersey inspired by the city. If the Statement jerseys cranked up the wackiness dial just a little bit, the City Editions turned it all the way to the right. There was no limit on what these could be. Teams designed uniforms that weren't confined to their existing brand, but rather represented the city and the fans the best they could. These were jerseys you could take the city streets with and feel that your shirt represented the culture around you. The City Edition jerseys tended to share a few common motifs. A big one is putting a different word mark on the front. Sometimes all you need to inject the city into your jersey is some hip local slang. With the locals, it's not Milwaukee, Sacramento, or Charlotte. It's Cream City, Sacktown, or Another motif is changing the color scheme to something that represents the area. This could include a cream colored jersey for all the creaming that goes on there, a jersey inspired by the city flag, a blue jersey, because there's lakes nearby. Yeah, this one can really mean anything, and it's usually just a rationale for a team wanting to make a wacky color change. Can't wait for the Knicks olive green jerseys, quote, inspired by the finance bros sweater vests on Wall Street. And sometimes they just choose an overall theme that they think represents the city. A famous one is Miami's Vice series of uniforms, hands down the most popular city jersey since the concept's inception. A famous TV show inspired this series of city jerseys, and they were a smash hit in sales. Among the original 30 city editions in the 2018 season, that Miami Vice one stood out as the best, although there wasn't much competition in the rest of the lineup. It seems like teams favored a good homage to the city over pure style in the first iteration of the concept, as some of these are just plain ugly. The Cavs went with gray and yellow, not their look. The Hawks get nostalgia points here with elements of their old uniforms present in this one, but this color scheme just doesn't work, man. The Grizzlies supposedly honored a famous MLK speech here, which is cool, but without that context, this is about as bland as it gets. The best way to honor MLK with your jersey is just put it on the jersey. I like the idea of putting public figures on the jerseys. I just mocked up this one for the Wizards. The Pacers honored Indianapolis's history with racing here, but I'm just not in love with the design. The Suns brought back the Hispanic heritage jerseys with these low Suns joints, but I'm just not digging the monochromatic purple. The Spurs said they were honoring the military here, but I don't even see a jersey on screen, so I can't comment on it. These fell short stylistically in my opinion, but at least they had some cool meanings behind them. The absolute worst of city jerseys is when they're ugly and have no apparent meaning behind them. Like these Thunder ones. What the hell are these? Did they let Sam Presti's 9-year-old son design these? In my opinion, gradient is almost never a good look on jerseys. These Magic ones are about halfway to becoming one of those 360 Galaxy shirts I've got here. They're just missing the giant wolf on both sides. And what about this Denver one is unique? This just looks like a shitty alternate that got scrapped. Of course, it wasn't all bad. The Miami Vice one alone was enough to justify this concept continuing, and on top of that, you had the Warriors honoring their Chinese community while also having a sick design. Chicago incorporated their flag colors and their old jersey font. The Wizards had this clean Washington Monument design, and the Jazz debuted their iconic sunset design. Oh, and you can't forget about the Raptors Drake edition jerseys. I'm sure these will never return. Overall, for year one of the concept, I think Nike and the NBA executed City Edition well enough. Well enough for 30 more the next year at least. Yeah, there's the kicker. These NBA City Edition jerseys were to be worn for just one season, 1 year, then they were gone. In the fall of 2018, 30 more City Edition uniforms were unveiled for the 2018-19 season. Despite the alarming precedent of cool City jerseys being scrapped after one season being set, the City Edition concept arguably improved in its second year, largely thanks to recycled concepts. Around half of the City Edition uniforms for 2019 were very similar to their 2018 counterparts. Either they used the same theme, did a different colorway of the same jersey, or straight up recycled the one from last season. This meant the teams who hit on their first design stayed good in year two, put a new coat of paint on it and boom, cool jersey. But then the teams who had underwhelming City jerseys in the first year had the chance to improve. The Nuggets were probably the most improved here. They finally tapped into their franchise's old rainbow motif for a sick modernized look. The Nets made the simplest of changes to their core jersey and came out with something that should honestly be their main colorway. I love the hint of color here. The Timberwolves hit on both style and significance with this sick Prince themed design. And these OKC jerseys are so nostalgic to me, and they're inspired by their Native American community. I'll always remember Hamidou Diallo ripping this jersey apart to win the otherwise underwhelming 2019 dunk contest. Thank God this was sick, because otherwise I'd be thinking about John Collins killing a family when he smashed this plane up trying to dunk over it. This is probably a good time to mention that the NBA pushed these City editions hard. The reason Hamidou Diallo had the City jersey on during his dunk contest win was because everyone had their City jersey on All-Star Saturday night. This trend would continue every year until 2023. Arguably the biggest biggest night of the year for the NBA in terms of representing the whole league, and on that stage, every player was wearing these new mashed up designs. But on a broader level than All-Star Weekend, this vast array of alternate uniforms that Nike was putting out was becoming a mainstay in the NBA universe. The NBA went from teams having 2 to 4 main jerseys under Adidas to 4 to 6 under Nike. Yes, 6 uniforms in one season was a possibility in the Nike era, meaning in this egalitarian wear whatever jersey you want universe, the core 2 to 3 colorways had at most a 50% shot of being picked for a game. Outside of the standard home and away designs, there was the Statement, which was usually an alternate colorway, the City Edition, some teams had a Classic Edition, which was a throwback jersey, and the 6th jersey was something they introduced in 2019, the Earned Edition. They were calling these jerseys anything. This should be a New York Times connection category at this point. But the Earned jersey wasn't given to all 30 teams. Rather, it was given to the 16 playoff teams from the last season, hence the name Earned. Yeah, Earned. Earn the right to charge your fans another $100? Fuck out of here, Nike. This was obviously just a cash grab. There's no way around it. What is the Nike NBA Earned program? Bro, they just made the playoffs. What are these random terms you guys keep coming up with? And with that win, the Wizards moved to 43-39 and have clinched a spot with the Nike NBA Earned program. Nike and the NBA were trying to see how far they could push consumers' wallets by marketing recycled jersey designs as a rite of passage for your team going 43-39 the previous year and sneaking into the 8th seed. Yeah, fuck Nike for doing that. I say recycled here because these jerseys, all 16 of them, were just different colorways of either the team's City Edition or Statement Edition. So alternates of alternates, nice. There are some good designs here, no doubt. In fact, I'd argue these are better than the City Editions overall, but many of them were just wasting future City Edition colorways. I'll use the Heat as an example once again. They clearly found a gem with this Vice concept. They did the white ones in 2018 and the black ones in 2019. Clearly they planned on recycling this concept as their City Edition as long as they could, and they should have, because these were sick. But this new Earned thing meant they had to make pink ones the same year as the black ones, instead of having the pink ones for their own full season. They would sell more jerseys this way, as each of these popular Vice City colorways would be on the market longer, but Nike and the NBA got greedy and made another jersey set for fans to buy the same season. This is a good time to mention that although I have criticisms now, I was big into the City Edition concept back then. I knew just about every team's City jersey for that year and ordered exclusively City and Earned jerseys when I discovered the world of $15 replica jerseys on DH Gate. I made some weird choices in this China order, man. This Sixers jersey is an awful design. Why the hell did I buy this over their regular ones? This LeBron James City Edition was actually meant to be a Lonzo Ball one, but I guess they confused the GOAT with this fraud instead. That's a joke. And of course I had to get this Nets D'Lo one. Too bad it looks like ass and shipped well after the Nets had become KD and Kyrie's playhouse and D'Lo was stuck on the tanking Warriors. Oh, and of course, when I bought a real $100 jersey back then, it also had to be an Earned edition. Although I don't regret this one at all. One of the rare Wizards W's when it comes to special editions. But my questionable purchases as a 13-year-old doesn't mean the Earned edition wasn't a soulless cash grab by Nike and the NBA. In retrospect, this was ridiculous. The Earned uniform concept was a clear miss by the NBA, which is why they didn't return in 2020. Not only were these jerseys recycled, they were reaching Oregon football levels of wastefulness by having jerseys that are only worn for half the season. These came out midway through the 2019 season. Each team that had one probably wore it no more than 10 times before they just threw it out the next year. But yet, I bought one. The NBA was overdoing it with their uniforms, but they were selling like crazy. There was no sign of stopping. The 2020 NBA season brought a whole new batch of NBA City uniforms, with the concept getting refined and improved on each coming year. Third time's the charm, they say. City Edition round number 3, unveiled for the 2019-2020 season, was honestly the best set of these so far. 29 City Editions this time around. Memphis skipped out for some reason, probably to not take away from these sick throwback unis they wore this season. Although I do find it a bit weird when teams wear throwback jerseys with their old location or branding on it. I don't know how many Vancouverites are missing the Vancouver Grizzlies, but I'll always have smoke with the Carolina Hurricanes for rocking Hartford Whalers jerseys. Getting back on track, the other 29 teams did an awesome job with City Edition this year. The Heat did their 4th iteration of the Miami Vice jersey, and it honestly might be the best, although they've run out of primary colors here. I'm really pondering their next move here. But it wasn't just the Heat recycling ideas for the better. This Nets one flips the color from 2019's Brooklyn camo model and puts Bed-Stuy on the word mark, a really cool nod to a famous neighborhood in Brooklyn. I like how the Nets City jerseys have given them some unique Brooklynness to their personality, something to separate them from just being the Knicks' little brother. The Nuggets did the rainbow design again, the Raptors did Drake again. These retro Cavs ones might take the cake for me, and overall there just aren't many bad ones here. Boring, sure, but none are egregiously ugly. Outside of these Mavericks ones, what did I tell you guys about Gradient? The city of Dallas, we got graffiti. And Ribs, the Chandler Parsons. We also got the famous, or perhaps infamous, Cream City uniforms this season. Milwaukee does technically have the nickname Cream City, and it is a part of the Cheese State, Wisconsin, but come on, Cream City? The City Edition was all we got in 2020 though, no earned edition, which was for the better in my opinion. These uniforms were enough to stand on their own, and I remember 2020 being a particularly great season for jerseys, especially in the bubble when we got gems like these. Overall, everyone was accepting new City jerseys as a new staple of the NBA cycle. For a 3rd season in a row, the jerseys were released, everybody rushed to rank them, saw which ones they liked, and kids like me, although many of the unauthorized replica form, rushed to buy them. So how did this all go wrong? All I'm seeing is cool jerseys. How could that be a bad thing for the sport? Well, despite me saying 2020 City jerseys were the best so far, some obvious cracks were forming in the concept, even more apparent than 2019's run of them. More and more teams were finding what worked for them through 3 seasons of special edition jerseys, but they couldn't just stop making new jerseys when they found a good one. There were some exceptions. Utah didn't change their sunset design for 3 seasons straight, and the Spurs went 3 seasons playing naked somehow as their City Edition, but Miami just kept churning out different colorways of the Vice Edition, and by year 3, all primary colorways of this format were exhausted. It's partially on them for not keeping each colorway around for longer, but the City Edition format expected a new jersey every year. It meant killer alternates like these were encouraged to be replaced. They had to be outdone. The fans wanted something new because that was the precedent set in 2019. So Miami cashed in on the concept and ran out mad quickly. At least good Vice jerseys were no more. If 2020 showed an impending crash for the City Edition concept, the 2021 refresh made it obvious. 30 new jerseys, no repeats from 2020. The tried and true motifs from previous seasons are back, but unequivocally worse in many cases. The Nets replaced their Brooklyn camo with this scribble design. It is a tribute to Jean-Michel Basquiat's work, but the old ones just look better in my eyes. The Jazz finally changed their original design from 2017 by just making 80% of the uniform black now. It did give us this legendary tweet though, so I can't complain too much. The Raptors do their OVO colors again, just a slight tweak from last year's. The Nuggets do the same design a 3rd year in a row, but instead of the awesome rainbow design, they do this weird monochromatic red thing. The only memory I have of these jerseys is Jokic getting in a fight with Devin Booker in them before getting swept in the 2nd round. Suns and foe, man, 2021 was underrated. The Clippers do the cool pirate looking font but in black now. The Wizards do this boring stars and stripes again but in gray now? Good old red, gray, and blue. The Kings go back to Sacktown again, this time in black. Milwaukee gets out of Cream City but starts their addiction of making their jerseys blue because lakes. But of course, the biggest kicker in this lineup is Yeah. Okay, I won't say this Heat jersey is all bad. Some people may like it. I'm not one of them, but if you take your fashion advice from Trix Yogurt, this may be your thing. The Heat City jersey this year brought to reality what we all knew was coming when City Edition became a yearly thing in 2019. This was change for the sake of change. The Heat made 4 normal looking uniforms with the Vice motif, enough for an entire rebrand if they wanted to. But because of Nike's precedent for these, the Heat had to do this to cling on to their fan favorite jerseys for just a 4th season of them. The next year, they were gone, replaced with a new and undoubtedly worse concept. This brought to light the fundamental issue with the City Edition jerseys to every fan. They can be awesome. Some of the coolest jerseys we've seen in NBA history have come through this line, but they don't last. Limited edition. They exist to be replaced, and in many cases, that replacement is not a positive, demonstrated through nothing else but the Miami Heat and their Trix Yogurt jerseys. 2021 was also the return of the Earned Edition. Who the fuck asked for this? They tried something new with the 2nd edition of Earned jerseys, and by new, I mean terrible. Unlike the 2019 version, which were strictly color changes of existing uniforms, some unique designs came in the 2021 Earned set, which meant we saw a whole lot of jerseys we shouldn't have. Almost all of these look like shitty alternate jersey concepts that they just had lying around. This Nets one is like the only one that's a bit clever, doing a New York City subway theme. And I don't blame them for the lack of effort. These jerseys came with 2 months left in the NBA season. Why would a team cook up a sick design if they know it'll only be worn for a couple of months and maybe the playoffs if they're lucky? These are all forgettable to me. I'm very knowledgeable about NBA jersey designs and I barely remember any of these. Following 2021's disaster, 2022 was kind of an off year for City jerseys. As part of the NBA's 75th anniversary celebration, the league decided that City Edition that season would stray away from the City theme and instead include elements honoring the team's history. And they knocked it out of the park. These are awesome jerseys, nearly all across the board. They don't all follow this modern retro mashup. For example, the Suns just kept their Valley jerseys from last year, which I don't blame considering they were probably the only great ones from 2021's lineup. The Warriors had this black jersey that doesn't really have anything to do with their history, and newly rebranded teams like the Thunder and Pelicans didn't really have anything to draw from. But outside of those teams, these were great. The way the NBA executed these throwback City jerseys makes me wonder if throwback would be a better general theme than City for these things. My favorites among these have to be the Hawks, the Rockets, the Bulls, the Bucks, the Raptors, the T-Wolves, the Hornets, and the Nets. But there are so many good ones here. Seriously, they're almost universally great. I indulged in a couple of these myself. Had to get the Wizards striped pajama looking things for the GOAT Daniel Gafford, and I couldn't resist the Raptors merging their OVO colorway with the dinosaur throwbacks. OG Anunoby was my pick though. I honestly don't wear this as much as I should because I often don't feel like presenting myself as someone who owns an OG Anunoby jersey. Nothing against the guy, he's a great player, I'm just not an OG Anunoby super fan. I promise to God I did consider Chris Boucher here though, so it could have been a lot worse. Following the 75th anniversary retro theme in 2022, they went back to the City theme for the 2023 ones, which was becoming a looser and looser definition by the year. These jerseys had to be known as City Edition just for branding's sake at this point. Many teams simply ran out of ideas to honor their city in a cool uniform. As a result, many of these 2023 models just looked like alternates, colors or font switches, nothing exciting. Not all fit this definition though. My Wizards finally got their head out of their asses and ditched the stars and stripes for a sick cherry blossom design. Did these look like knockoff Miami Vice jerseys? Yes. Did I care? No. These paired with the Gilbert Arenas era classic editions we got that year made 2023 by far the best jersey year for a team that has desperately needed a rebrand for about a half decade now. The Blazers also switched it up with this kinda ugly but insanely charming design inspired by the PDX airport. The line running through the jersey is the same pattern as the carpeting in the airport. That is what we call City Edition, Portland. And congrats, Toronto, you've officially stretched the Drake OVO color scheme for a 6th year in a row. Same to you, Pelicans, for doing another Mardi Gras design that if you asked even a Pelicans fan what year it was from, they'd probably fail since they all look so similar. For the jerseys here that aren't just refreshing old ideas or boring, meaningless designs, they're pretty damn ugly. This Warriors one is disgusting. They're honoring women with this design? Are you trying to get them to organize against your franchise? Even if there were a few winners as always, the amount of them is greatly decreased, and even the solid ones just feel meaningless. There's barely any aha moments like there was with previous City Editions. These are just alternates, more than they've ever felt like that before. Oh, and glad that one got past the drawing board. And 2024 was more of the same, but even worse. Before I dig into these, the Orlando, Phoenix, and Utah designs are very cool in my opinion. Outside of those though, Jesus Christ. Why is the field so dark? Over half of these are black or a dark color. Most of these City Editions at this point are just non-black teams trying to do a blackout jersey. Like the Nuggets, you have so many cool color schemes to draw from, but you do this all black jersey with numbers all over it. What team do you like? I'm a 5,280s guy. It can get pretty rough. The Mavs also have this cheap DH Gate looking all black jersey. The Hawks replaced their cool black and peach color scheme for this Times New Roman bold thing. The Pelicans finally ditched their Mardi Gras theme, and I wish they didn't because apparently they forgot Halloween is a week into the NBA season. The Nets outsourced this one to a children's pajamas artist, and the Heat, oh, the Heat, how the mighty have fallen. They went from the most popular jerseys in basketball to wearing something that glazes their ability to sign undrafted randoms while playing 500 basketball. And to credit myself, I'm not dogging on these in retrospect. Shitting on this specific set of jerseys was my journalistic debut. Journalism, legal adult cries about fabric on ball players. A friend of mine was running a sports blog at the time, and I wrote my first article for him on just how bad these jerseys were. I hated to see the jerseys I loved turn into yearly cash grabs. They were always that, but at least they were cool. NBA teams were running out of ideas for these city jerseys, and all of them, even the good designs, just looked bland and soulless. Perhaps the worst jersey from all of 2024 was that of my very own Washington Wizards. Well, they're not my own, because if I own the team, I'm sure as hell not letting them come out in B's. If you don't watch a lot of Wizards games, which means the entire audience should be listening, the Wizards are a team who spams their special edition jerseys. Year by year, it seems they wear their alternates far more than their regular jerseys. So basically, whatever the city jersey is for that year is our look for that year. That season goes with those jerseys. As I mentioned before, 2023 was the best selection of jerseys they had since Nike took over in 2017. A great city and classic edition meant the Wizards looked good for about half their games. The team didn't play well, but at least they were going down in style. The point is, I watched my Wizards go from some of the cleanest uniforms on a near nightly basis to wearing the ugliest jersey in 1 year. The 2023-24 Wizards are defined by these jerseys. They sucked, which was fitting, but it wasn't the fun kind of sucking where your team at least has some young players to watch like the future Wizards seasons would hold. No, the 2024 Wizards were Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole playing for stats, and Denny Avdia playing well enough to net them 2 first-round picks in an offseason trade. I just didn't watch this team very much, as those things weren't that appealing to me, and these jerseys sure as hell did not help. 2 different tones of gray as the base, separated by a random red line with this weird red and orange majestic font with a teal and orange gradient on the sleeves. This is a mess. And it's a shame because it has cool ties to the city, being spun off these boundary stones all over DC, But if this is the length you have to go to make a jersey that represents the city in 2024, it might be time to think of a new gimmick, NBA. And what the Wizards did in 2025 epitomizes what the City Edition has become. By the 8th iteration of this concept, there forms a dichotomy between making a cool jersey and honoring the city. Teams can rarely do both these days. The Wizards just refreshed their design from 2024, making it go from the ugliest to honestly pretty cool, but then it lost all the subtle ties that connected it to the city on the city jersey. I have one, I like it, Bilal Koulibaly signed it, but it's not the best design they could have done. It's ultimately forgettable. The other uniforms in 2025 were similar to what the Wizards did. So many of them were just reskins of 2024's models, which I can't even blame them for because how many more unique designs can you do? 2025 was the year that the City Edition concept had officially soured, both with the fans and with the league itself. Yup, with the 2026 season on the horizon, leaks showed that the NBA had embraced what was happening already. All City Edition jerseys would just be reskins of a previous fan favorite, calling it the Encore City Edition. They're never gonna stop with these arbitrary terms, are they? The Miami Vice, Raptors Dinosaur, Nuggets Rainbow, Nets Brooklyn Camo, Suns Valley, and many of the other fan favorite designs will be returning. This might mark the end of the yearly NBA City jersey after 8 iterations of the concept, but more importantly, it's an admission of defeat. Nike and the NBA pushed the limits of consumerism. Eventually, the money grab went stale. Teams ran out of cool concepts, and Nike and the NBA had to pivot. But before they could choose a new direction, the league defaulted to the easiest trick in modern consumerism. Bring back what the consumers, in this case the fans, have shown they liked. Heat fans can buy Norman Powell and Khalil Ware Vice jerseys. Timberwolves fans can buy Anthony Edwards Prince jerseys. Bucks fans can buy Kyle Kuzma Cream City jerseys because they're back, baby! But that's not the point. This is clearly just an intermediary step to get some nostalgia bait in before they make a bigger move. The real question we've got to be asking is, what does the future hold for the City Edition jerseys? They can't just re-release old jerseys forever. Something has to change, but how? What I'm about to suggest the NBA do is something that you may have been screaming this entire time, if you're a fan of other sports leagues. See, as I mentioned earlier, Nike is also the jersey provider for MLB and the NFL. Both of these leagues now have added some line of jerseys similar to the NBA City jerseys, with MLB starting in 2021 and the NFL beginning it in 2025. How do these leagues do it differently, and in my opinion better than the NBA? MLB has been doing their City Connect uniform since 2021, so I'll start with them since there's a larger sample. Their secret sauce is they don't refresh it every year. That's literally it. A simple change, but infinitely better results because it's an infinitely better formula for honoring the city. Since the concept debuted in 2021, 28 out of 30 teams have received City Connect uniforms. The only outsiders being my rigid, old school, no nonsense Yankees and the Oakland Athletics, who are now known as the Athletics. I shouldn't have to explain why a team whose location is the doesn't have a City Connect jersey. Only 5 to 7 City Connect jerseys are released each year, with them also being revealed at different points in the season. This gives each uniform their own time in the spotlight and makes them easier to keep track of as a general fan. And because they're worn for 3 to 4 years at a minimum, the team builds stronger lore with that specific jersey, and they become more popular and iconic with the fans. I know plenty of Boston fans in my area, and the yellow City Connect jersey is certainly very popular. But the real thing I love about MLB's jersey rules is what happened next with the Red Sox. The Red Sox got a new City Connect jersey for 2025, being this green monster design. But with the release of this new City Connect jersey, the Red Sox also kept their old city uniform as an alternate, so they can still wear their yellow one if they want. If this were applied to the NBA, let's say the Jazz had their iconic sunset uniform and court around for many years, colors, even more than they got away with keeping it in the real timeline. Instead of having to ditch that one for their new purple mountain design, they could keep it around under special circumstances. NBA teams have already pulled stuff like this in recent memory. In 2025, the Heat brought back their original Vice jersey mid-season, but for them to do this, they had to replace their normal white uniform. For a league that would let their teams wear a different jersey on every game of the year if they could, they've got oddly strict rules on how they classify these jerseys and how many jerseys you can have. Oh, and by the way, they ditched the Heat culture jerseys when they did this, which proves they'd rather have worn these beautiful Vice ones all along instead of replacing them every year. My plan for the NBA jersey format would go as follows. Keep the 3 standard association, icon, and statement editions. If you're gonna allow teams to wear any jersey on any night, 3 standard colorways is essential to make sure teams aren't matching colors. Beyond those 3, have 2 slots for more alternates. You don't need to have 2 alternates, but they're there if you want. You could use 1 slot for a city jersey and 1 slot for a throwback jersey, both of which would remain in their lineup for at least 3 or 4 years. Or you could have 2 city jerseys, 2 throwback jerseys. It's your team, your fans to sell stuff to. Why don't teams push for this? It would give them more freedom in what they wear while also allowing them to keep their most popular designs around instead of having to throw them away for new, progressively more bland ones. So for the NBA, after this season of city jerseys, take a step back. Let them keep the 2026 ones for another year. After a couple years, phase in new city editions gradually. Go all out for each and every one of them. Have them mean something again. And this format would also let teams keep beautiful throwbacks for more than 1 season. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles Kelly Green throwback uniform. So many people have bought those because they've been around for a few years now and they're becoming iconic again. Imagine the NFL moved like the NBA and they wore these for 2 games and never again. Oh shit, they're doing that with their city jerseys. But at least in the NFL, these are only coming out every 4 years, and who knows, it's only the first year of the concept. Maybe the new jerseys that got unveiled this season will return next year. We just don't know yet. Regardless of the NFL, MLB alone has set the blueprint for the NBA. I find it hilarious that there's a good chance Nike just wanted to bring city jerseys to MLB, but called them City Connect to differentiate them from the shit show in the NBA. And I gotta say, those changes have been warranted, and they should connect that idea to the NBA. Oh, and I didn't touch on this, but keep alternates what they are. Alternates. Don't let teams wear these 2 jerseys more than maybe 15 games this season. And last but not least, bring back the Christmas jerseys. Why did you draw the line here? You can make 6 jerseys in 1 year, but not Christmas jerseys? The NBA's arbitrary and nonsensical rules in the Nike jersey era have totally negated the awesome designs that have come throughout this time. They can fix this. Just tag them in the comments section, guys. They'll get back to me. The City Edition concept ran its course, and it may or may not be retooled into something better. We'll just have to wait and see. If there's anything you should take away from this, it's that I've always been a sucker for these things. My disdain for them comes from the jerseys becoming ass, not the jerseys existing themselves. Most jerseys I own are of the city variety because I love the fun designs. But I gotta start putting my money where my mouth is. I need to make this room my own brand. Where's my pizza flag? Hello, is this Amazon? Yeah, where's my flag? No, I didn't burn it. That was the meatball one. The deadline passed? I can't wear that pepperoni pizza flag now? I need a sausage one? Get me a pineapple one, f*** it. Wasteful, isn't it?